Good morning. This is Crystal Woods with Seasons in the Vine, and it's Fresh Friday. So today, so pumped. Can't wait to get this message into your hands. I came across this revelation a couple weeks ago after listening to a worship leader speak about Jacob and his name, and I never made this correlation before, but it was so powerful. And I just want to share it with you. I want this to just refresh your faith, refresh the fire within, to be honest with God, and to not have compromise in your life in any way, and to just be who He has made you to be, who He died to make you to be, who He wants you to be, who He wills you to be. And so, who are you is the question today, because it is the question that Jacob, one of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, one of the patriarchs, needed to answer. And he had answered it a particular way in the past, but to become Israel, to become a nation, he needed to come clean and be honest about who he really was. So try to track with me just a little bit. So we're going to be in Genesis, first book of the Bible. We're going to start in 27. There's going to be a lot of the story that we don't get to because we just don't have time. It's not the purpose of this Fresh Friday. The purpose of this Fresh Friday is this one correlation of who are you. And so I want to just spend some time focusing on that particular part of the story. So I'm going to give you a real quick rundown. Abraham has Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac is the child of promise. And so Isaac has children as well. He marries Rebekah. He has two sons. They are twins, Esau and Jacob. I'm going to try to keep the name straight. I have had to film this a couple of times because I keep putting the wrong name in. I know what I mean, but when you get to saying all the names, sometimes you say the wrong one. So twins, Esau and Jacob. Esau, totally different. Just a totally different guy, man of the field. Jacob is loving hanging out in the tents, being closer to home. Esau's super hairy, and Jacob is not. And so they're twins, though. And the oldest is Esau. But God has already foreordained and foreknown and predestined that Jacob is the one that Jesus is going to come through this line, because one of his sons, Judah, becomes the tribe of Judah. And that's the line that Jesus comes from. So God has determined this is how it's going to be, but there's just some crazy wonkiness. So the younger is going to be over the older, right? So we have this semblance of that's what's going to happen. Esau's born first, but Jacob's going to end up being the greater one, the ruler. But the way that happens is it's not God's way. They do it through trickery. They do it through stealing. And I say they, you really just need to get into the story, but Rebekah, his mom, really favors Jacob. So we see some kind of broken family systems there. And they trick Isaac into giving Esau's blessing, because Esau is the oldest, blessing to Jacob. And so there's trickery there. That's not how God would have things be done. He's not deceptive. And so they are making things happen of their own accord. And so this isn't the first time Jacob has taken something that doesn't belong to him. Honestly, Esau, he wants to kill him after this interaction. And I kind of get it. This guy has just been a trickster. Jacob means a supplanter. So he comes along and uproots what's there. And he takes total advantage. Earlier in their story, he takes advantage of Esau's weak moment and takes his birthright. He sells it to him for soup. It's crazy. So Esau gives away his birthright in order to get food. And we see that Jacob is just making his way. He's a tricky guy. He ends up getting tricked later on by his father-in-law, by being given Leah in marriage instead of Rachel. Then he's got to work longer for Rachel. As you can tell, I'm just building a big summary here. The key points we are going to look at, though, is that Jacob was one way, and he kept trying to be someone he wasn't. And I'm going to show you that. And then he wrestles with God. Okay, let's get into it. Give you a little backstory there. So Isaac is old. This is Genesis 27, and his eyes are dim, so he can't see. And he calls Esau, his older son, and said, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I'm old. I don't know the day of my death. It's coming though. And so he tells him, get your weapons, go out into the field, hunt game, make me some food. I am going to bless you. Now, this is not a regular kind of blessing. This isn't just an inheritance of physical things. This is some kind of supernatural blessing as well. The Old Testament blessings are like an impartation. It's pretty powerful and it means a lot. And you want to have this. And as the oldest, he was entitled to it. But Rebekah, who favors Jacob, hears that this is what's going on and tells Jacob to trick his dad and get Esau's blessing. And so she goes along with him. They get the food, they make the food, they go and put on, she grabs Esau's garments and puts them on Jacob. And remember, Esau's hairy, so they take animal fur and skin and put it on his neck and his hands. It's a big story. You got to just get into it. I'm just giving you the little lowdown here. And he goes in and this is how we pick up in verse 18. So he went into his father, who's dressed like Esau. And he said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Who are you? And Jacob said to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. He lies. I've done as you've told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it you found food so quickly? He answered, because the Lord your God granted me success. Ooh, so we see some spiritual manipulation happening. God did it. God said it. That's why we need discernment. And so, but what happens there, if you don't have discernment, you begin to just believe people are actually telling the truth. And Jacob is lying. He's not telling the truth. God did not do any of this. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near that I may feel you, my son. Because remember, Esau's going to feel differently, and they already anticipated it. And so that I know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, who felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother's hands. So he blessed him. Are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. And so he lies. And so he ends up getting Esau's blessing. This doesn't go well. Esau wants to kill him. It's really bad. He's on the run. Time goes by. Lots and lots of time goes by. And basically, we're going to pick up the story knowing now that Jacob has stolen what wasn't his. He has said he was somebody he wasn't. It's so interesting what ends up happening with his father-in-law in the future, Laban, because literally the same kind of situation happens. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, let's jump back to 27 really quick. Because when Esau found out that Jacob had done this, he was not surprised. He said, verse 36 of chapter 27, Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? Remember, he's a supplanter. For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. And so he's just crooked. He's a trickster. He's trying to get the blessing his way. And it's not God's way, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So he has a visitation later on in his life, and that's where we're going to pick up today. It's not going to work, but it's all about the name. His name is wrong. Because he's saying he's somebody he's not. He's saying he's Esau. And even in being Jacob, like, he needs to be honest about who he really is. So let's pick up the story in Genesis 32:22. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 children. He was 11 at this point. We know eventually he'll have 12 because they're going to be the 12 tribes. And he crossed the ford of Jabbok, and he took them and set them across the stream and everything else he had. And Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, Jacob's got a lot of strength in him. He's got a lot of ways of having his own will. And this is pretty profound. So this man touches his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. And then he said, let me go, for the day is broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. He's wanting another blessing. He wants another blessing. And the man is like, well, who are you though? Verse 27 is really where the revelation is. And he said to him, what is your name? Okay, you want a blessing, but who are you? The last time, remember, he was asked. He said he was his brother. This time, this man says, well, who are you though? Like, who am I going to be blessing? Who's here before me? And this is a profound moment. because Jacob actually answers who he is. And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob. Like, okay, you've been honest. You're a trickster. You're a supplanter. This is who you've been. Thank you for being honest. Now I can do what I want with you. Now we can go where you need to go. You're not going to be this anymore. You're going to be Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. And this time he is going to go from Jacob to Israel. God can now take this trickster, give him a new name. He's been honest, and make him a nation in which the world will be saved through his son, Jesus. Wow. But then Jacob says in verse 28, then Jacob asked, 29, and then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. And he said, why is it you ask my name? And there he blessed him. And so Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. So he's not calling him a man anymore. He's calling him God. And so what we need to understand is, who is this? Who is this person he's been wrestling with? Because he is saying it's God. I've seen God face to face. He's wrestled with God, but he didn't perish from it. Pretty profound. And so what scholars believe in general, and most scholars, I'm sure there are some varying views, but in general, the overall view of this is the pre-incarnate Jesus. That's who takes on human form. He's flesh and bone. And so he's touchable. Jacob really wrestled with a man, but this man was also God. So he's got to be Jesus. And that's where I stand with that. The pre-incarnate Christ, not the one we see. I mean, the one we see, but pre the incarnation, pre coming out of Mary's womb, that Jesus, the one that is the second person of the Trinity, and all of creation was made through him. So good. All right, now let's get to our application. I've filled you in with the story. Who are you? What is your name? Some of us are not really being us. We're not really being honest with God. We're playing the game. We're playing the Christian game. We're playing being good people. We're dabbling in compromise. God can't bless compromise. He can't bless false identity. He can't bless being a Pharisee. It's just not who he is. So Jacob wants to be blessed, but he wants it through all the wrong means. So often we want God to bless the way we want to be blessed. The way I'm in this situation, and God, can you just bless it? Can you just make it right? It's like when Abraham wanted Ishmael to be Isaac. You can't. Like, Ishmael can never be Isaac. Only Isaac can be Isaac. And in this situation, only Jacob could be Jacob, and only Jacob could become Israel. He can't be Esau. God can't bless Esau because Esau was not the one to be made into the nation where his son would come from. That was Israel. And so God has spoken something over our lives, but we have to do it his way. And we have to be honest about who we really are. Now, where did that come into play for me? I came to the end of myself and the way I was playing Christian 7 years ago. And the Lord, I knew, had something on my life. I knew it. I was anointed for something. And I remember him saying, like, I want to do so much with you. So much. I have so much for you in the kingdom, but you've got to be done with these other things. No compromise. I can't bless sin. I can't bless what my son died to set you free from. And for me, I call them the 3 Ps. They were people pleasing, perfectionism, and performance-based acceptance. They were really, really big. They were big compromises. God couldn't bless that. So I had to come to him and say, I'm Crystal, and I've got all these things that are broken. I've got a mess here, Lord, but I'm going to acknowledge that I actually do. I'm not going to hide it under a religious frame. I'm not going to make it look pretty. I'm going to be honest. And so when this man is wrestling with Jacob, he wants the blessing. He's after that. God bless me. But he's like, who am I blessing though? Who am I blessing? Because I can't bless what is not ordained to be blessed. And the way he lived was not right. And he needed to acknowledge, oh, I'm not Esau. I'm Jacob. Like, if I'm going to receive the blessing this time for who I really am. And so we have to be honest in the condition. You know, we hear all the time, come as you are. Well, we come like 50% and then we hide the rest, or we try to get away with the rest. But God can't bless compromise. And so, are you done being who you think you should be, or the way you want to be? And are you ready to become who he wants you to be, who he has willed you to be? That is where the blessing lies. But you've got to be done with doing it your own way, just like Jacob did. So who are you, and how will you be honest with God about that? Much love. See ya.